The following podcast is part of the MindBodySpirit.fm podcast network.
Wholeness means to me being in a state of joy.
Wholeness means feeling complete, owning my authentic gifts.
Wholeness is really connected. Everything is connected to everything.
Wholeness is where we have access to all parts of ourselves.
Today I got to sit down with my one and only daughter, Hazel, and have a conversation that maybe wouldn't have had the opportunity if I didn't have this podcast. And I learned so much, and it was such a gift to me, and I'm so grateful that I get to share her with you and all that she has taught me. I don't know if I've had a greater teacher in the physical flesh than Hazel, my daughter. So I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I hope she gives you the ability to show up authentically as yourself. She oozes that, and I could not be more proud.
It gets a little bit complicated sometimes because I do feel empowered to go against the grain and stand out a little bit.
That's like your nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it is hard to deal with the lashback that comes with it because it still is very prominent, like especially with riding motorcycles. There are a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, go you're
Right.
being independent and making fun choices, but I do get a lot of hate and a lot of objectification for it.
Do you think it would be different if you were a boy?
I think it would.
Yeah.
People would have a little bit less trouble talking to me. They would, there's a lot of things that like their communication with each other is a lot more friendly, while versus with me, they feel like they have to be either professional or flirty. A lot of them struggle to just be friends.
Themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe even.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think people perceive you? And there's probably more than one answer, but how do you think people perceive you? And then how are you really?
Like in the biker community specifically,
If you want.
A lot of them perceive me as like they think that I want to ride motorcycles for attention from men. Like they think I want to appear attractive to them. And the reality is that I grew up riding motorcycles with my dad.
Right.
And he's the one who inspired me to get into it.
Yeah. Hazel, we had this little teeny tiny motorcycle that was gifted from my husband's work, and he would come home at night from work, and it was just the thing. They would get on the little motorcycle and ride around the circle. That was like the end of the day, beginning of Dad getting home from work. From the time you were little, just little. So it's been a part of who you are. So it genuinely is part of who you are, but people kind of assume that you're doing it to appear a certain way. So they get that wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have boundaries?
I do, but I do let people overstep a little bit more than I should. There are comments that people make that I should be more active about shutting them down for. Like, I remember there was this one time where this guy told me to go get something for him. And I just didn't think of it, but there was another girl who was with us who cussed him out for it. It was like,
right.
Don't talk to her like that.
Right.
And she got made fun of for it. Like, he would not stop talking about, like, oh, remember that jerk at the Rancheritos who was telling me off or telling you to go grab something for me.
Right.
And that was kind of like a moment of realization for me, being like, yeah, but I shouldn't have taken that.
Right. There was a bigger group there, and most of them were male. And so it asking you to do it wasn't just, you're the closest one.
Yeah, he had also used a very unkind name for me when
gotcha.
he told me to go grab it. And, you know, it's hard to find that balance of like, oh, he's just teasing me because I'm like a little sister to him.
Right.
And what a jerk.
Right. Well, what a gift that other like girl was to see it for you. And
we sometimes need to do that for each other.
Yeah.
Be each other's boundaries, you know.
Yeah.
In that
And
moment, she was your boundary.
It was super cool because when they first met her, they were all over her because she's this small girl. She's really pretty. She knows how to weld. She does boxing. She rides a motorcycle, obviously. They were swoon. But then they find out that she is assertive and doesn't take things from other people. And all of a sudden she's a prude or she's rude.
They don't like her. Yeah. Yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad. So how do you make boundaries? What is that? How did you learn to do that? Or how is that journey going for you?
Yeah, the truth is that I'm still learning how to.
Of course.
But it helps to just, like, that person who told me to go get the guacamole for him, I don't talk to him anymore.
Right.
I just completely cut him off because he wasn't learning.
Right.
But there were times where I had talked to him and been like, hey, that really hurt my feelings. Like, I don't like it when you guys tease me like this.
Right.
And they just say, oh, but you know that we act like that. You know that we're not serious. Like, if you're...
Right.
You shouldn't be sensitive towards it. And I'm like...
Well, that's hard.
A lot of them just don't get it.
Yeah.
Because it can be a joke and it can be fun.
Right.
But there's a point.
Well, and I think it's important, you know, a lot of times boundaries, we think of them as a line not to be crossed. And I think that's really true. But I think it's also understanding where I begin, or I end and someone else begins, and where my capacity ends. And so if you are just running around picking up guacamole for everybody, when do you get to eat?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And so it's understanding, look, I can't show up as my best self if this, whatever this is in the equation. And that doesn't mean in that case, that's a hard boundary. But let's say, you know, sometimes people's sensitivities, and I get this, it's like, you know, it's like, I want other people to, you know, I know that if this situation shows up and I'm frustrated or upset or struggling, then at home, you guys are going to feel that. And I don't have the capacity to just shut that off and not let it leak onto you, to my kids or my family. So my boundary is like, I understand where I can't have that in my life so that I can be better over here. I understand. And maybe I work in that. Maybe I practice and maybe I strengthen that muscle so that those things don't bother me, but they do, you know, like, and so I have to kind of know who I am a little bit. And like for you, that was a lesson that helped you a little bit learn who you are. And you're still in that stage of learning.
The truth is that it's easier to listen to them, to just take it and be like, oh, haha, you're so silly.
Right.
And that is the easiest route. But then, you know, that's what my daughters are going to go through. That's what
right.
My friends are going to go through. And it gets exhausting.
Yeah.
But it does also get exhausting to fight for yourself and stand up for yourself, because I'm going to be called sensitive, feminist.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hard. What would you say? So you're getting ready to turn 19.
Mm-hmm.
So you're almost finished with teenagehood. So think broadly over this teenagehood experience, but what would say is the hardest part about being a teenager?
About being like specifically a teenager or going into adulthood?
Let's do both. Let's talk about teenager first, since you still are a teenager.
I would say learning why I act the way that I do, because there are times where I have outbursts or I have depressive episodes, and finding out, or like learning how to observe that from like a third person standpoint of what got me here, what's going to fix it from here. Just learning kind of how to navigate that has been super hard. Like, obviously it messed with my school life.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Teenagehood has been difficult because we've always teased, she's always been like 5 going on 30, you know. Hazel has a maturity to her that's almost beyond me in some ways. I say it a lot, but Hazel is one of my greatest teachers, and it's been both a privilege and like it's been an education to learn from her. And you are so authentic. And you know, I was just doing another interview, and we talked about that your generation brings this authenticity in a way we've never had, you know. And I said to her, I said, yeah, when I was young in the 80s, we all literally wear the same pants. I mean, we had the same pants. They were tied at the bottom. You couldn't have any kind of width to them. If you had a zipper on the side, even better to keep them so tight. You would not wear a wide leg jean at all. Like it was literally, our clothes were the same. And odd that is, to have a daughter that is completely herself, and realizing I didn't have that opportunity for myself. And so there's like this little bit of grief. I think at the beginning there's a little bit of, that's not the way it's supposed to be, because and it's like, no, my way was the way it probably wasn't supposed to be.
It also got difficult when you and Dad started going to therapy, and just having you guys start to learn new things.
Yes.
And seeing that translate into our home life. There were some mistakes and there are some good things. But It has grown into a super healthy relationship that a lot of my friends really envy.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a journey. It's, again, that natural part of me wants, I mean, I feel like the way I did things, or the way my normal life is, I mean, it's just my normal life. I don't have any other perspective. Another person has a perspective, you know, it can feel wrong. You know, and that's been the journey of healing for me, is to recognize the wholeness of things, that the wholeness incorporates all different parts and things like that. So yeah, it's been a journey. And people always ask me, well, people will say to me, so do your kids just like, they've just got to be thinking you can help them with everything? I said, no, to me, they have seen every flaw I've ever had. They have seen the dark side. They have seen the unjourneyed. They have seen the everyday. They have seen the tired. They have seen the hungry. Like, that's their reality. They do not see the presentation that gets put out into the world.
And the truth is that there is a difference between my needs as needing you as a mom,
right,
versus needing you as a therapist,
yeah,
or a life coach. I don't want you to be my life coach.
No, we're not supposed to be that way. No.
So that's another difference that people don't quite understand.
Right. Like, no, nobody thinks their mom's the coolest thing in the world. It's just not normal. Mm-hmm. It's not normal. What was the hardest part then about moving into adulthood?
It's been really hard just to learn the actual logistics of it, like learning how to vote, how to budget things, how to eventually move out when I was looking into that, and getting a new job. A lot of people take me more seriously. Mm-hmm. The truth is that I'm still 18, so a lot of them don't take me seriously. But also having like older people interested in me is weird.
All of a sudden, as you grow into adulthood, the hierarchy kind of flattens out a little bit, and you could talk to like a 30-year-old and it might be on the same page. Yeah. Where a few years before, not at all. Yeah. And especially talking to an adult, they were always, you know, that's a hard transition to have to move from a kind of an authority over you to a peer. Mm-hmm. We don't really talk about that very much. We don't like say that out loud. We kind of just let people go through that transition on their own. And it is a big, huge transition.
Yeah, my bosses talk to me like I'm a normal person. Sometimes, you know, they'll be like, oh, in my generation, blah, 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 but it's not as different. Like, it's not talking down to, right. It's talking to me.
Right. So at first, was that a little uncomfortable? Like, you kind of had to move into a space where you accepted your enoughness to be in that, to be a peer versus an authority type figure?
It has been. It depends on who I'm talking to.
For sure.
Because, like, in my work situation, or sometimes talking to another biker, it's, it feels empowering. Like, yeah, I belong here. I can assert myself here. But with people who have, like, romantic interest, it gets a little bit awkward.
Right.
Or like, I don't know, when they're interested in getting to know who I am as a person, when they're like 32, it's just, it makes me, it feels weird.
Yeah, you're still in a transition. You're still in a transition period of your life, moving into adulthood. I mean, yes, technically you're 18 and you're adult, but also just because a date came and went doesn't mean you've got it all figured out. And I think it's okay to acknowledge being in that, they call it the bug soup, where you're a caterpillar, you're not a caterpillar, you're not a butterfly, you're just a bug soup right in the middle of the cocoon. And I think you're doing a good job with where you're at.
Thanks.
What are the best part? What was the best part of being a teenager?
Probably just the freedom to probably just being able to rely on my parents a lot more. Like, I can still rely on you guys, but there are things where I do need to take responsibility. Like, I need to start paying for my own insurance and paying for my car.
Yeah.
And taking out a loan by myself and selling my bike by myself. And
Yeah.
It is scary because there are a lot of places where I can make a mistake. Like, I can mess up my credit score or
Right.
overspend my money and have to figure out what to do.
And we've kind of, it's been important to us to allow you some space to figure that out rather than
walk me through it all
well,
the way.
I think we'll walk you through it, but you have to understand, I mean, sometimes the failure is where you can actually learn, what to do. And so it's not that we're hoping you fail. It's just, we're not going to impose upon you like a rule about it necessarily. We'll tell you our ideas and thoughts about it, but that's different than like a rule, and there will be consequences if you don't follow this rule.
Like,
because that doesn't show up at 22. It doesn't show up at 32. It doesn't.
Are you searching for balance in a busy world? Looking to nourish your soul and inspire your mind? Introducing Spirituality and Health, a Unity publication. Each issue of the magazine brings you insightful articles on mindfulness, wellness, and the profound connection between body and spirit. Spirituality and Health is your companion on the journey to a more fulfilling life. Subscribe today and receive 3 digital issues for free. Visit spiritualityhealth.com/3 free.
Up at 50, like someone else's consequences, somewhere you have to take your own, it becomes your own journey.
Transcend the limits of human capacity and overcome self-sabotaging beliefs with Greg Braden, best-selling author, teacher, and pioneer in merging science and spirituality. The Pure Human Breakthrough Retreat is happening October 18th to 21st in beautiful Nanaimo, Vancouver Island. Work with Greg and participants from around the world as you explore your divinity as a human being and break through unresolved trauma from the past. Don't miss this life-changing 4-day intensive experience. Register now at shalohaproductions.com.
You've always been willing to kind of jump off the cliff into new things, I would say. Like, you've been willing, it's kind of in your nature to push the limits in different ways. And has that been something that just comes naturally to you, or how would you describe that ability to do that to you? Does it feel special to you at all, or does it just feel normal?
It feels pretty normal. It's kind of like the ADHD thing of just hyper focusing on one thing and getting bored of it and wanting to try something new, just constantly wanting something new. It just feels natural.
Yeah.
But it has been a little bit strange going with my friends who have an even bigger desire to push the limits, like motorcycle wise. They want to be going 170 down the freeway, weaving through traffic, and I have no desire to do that. So it's been weird seeing that from a different perspective.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say is you're like, oh, this is what my mom has kind of mentioned before.
It is terrifying because these are people that I care about.
Right.
And it's hard to find the balance of wanting to let them be free and let them be themselves and let them, like, if that's where they truly feel free and they feel like authentic, going 170 down the freeway through traffic, then
Right.
I guess I just have to get used to that.
Yeah, it's a little more complex about whether it's that good or bad. Well, it's a little more complex than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to even put into words, I would say.
My boyfriend has a
Mhm.
roommate who wanted to get a motorcycle, and his girlfriend said, no way. I want to have a family. I cannot have you put your life at risk.
Yeah.
And he got super angry with her, being like, well, if you're not going to let him be himself and experiment with new things, then he's just stuck in this relationship that he doesn't want to be in.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find that balance of, I want them to be safe and I want them to be authentic.
Right. And especially when you get into relationships, then you have a whole nother realm of coming to, that's a whole difficult thing, right?
It's compromise.
It's a compromise. It's a delicate line between compromise and authenticity, and that's what the next adulting part is going to bring you. That I'm like, I'll just apologize ahead of time. That's going to be that's difficult part. So the best part of almost becoming an adult, did you say that, or were you talking about teenager?
The best part of being a teenager is being able to rely on having something to fall back on.
Gotcha.
Having an excuse.
Right.
For making mistakes. It feels super hard to make mistakes right now.
Did you feel that in the middle of your teenagehood? Or is it something you were kind of looking more back on?
A little bit of both, like during school,
Yeah. Well, we're glad to be out of school, aren't we?
Yes.
So what are you most looking forward to as you become this adult, out of the cocoon butterfly version of adulthood? What are you looking forward to the most?
Part of me has this fantasy almost of, once I go all in, I'll be able to handle it.
Well, you've done it in the past.
I guess so. Like once I move out, I'll be fine to do my own dishes and clean my house because it's going to be my things and no one else is telling me to do that. It's just taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And
I think when you're at home it's more like a chore.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to explain the difference between that. Part of me just has I don't know if it's a realistic hope, but a hope that it's just going to be a little bit easier once I'm in my own space.
Yeah.
And the truth is that it's easier once I get started, and then I fall back behind, and then it gets really bad, and I get depressed and unmotivated, and then either something sparks and I'm able to come back from it, or I reach out for help from someone, and I say, I'm not doing well, I really need help. Like for my 18th birthday, my one birthday present that I wanted was help cleaning my room because I couldn't do it. And that was a nice little reset for me, and I was able to pick myself back up.
Yeah. In the last couple of years, we've discovered an ADHD diagnosis, and recognizing that part of that it wasn't a character flaw. I mean, so many listening might say I can't believe you wouldn't know how to clean your room. And yet when you understand ADHD, that makes a lot more sense, and you having that journey has been so helpful for me to understand how much I need to hold back on my judgment of things, or like I say, just because something's easy for me, just because my world looks at it from this point of view, doesn't mean that that's the way that it is for everybody, and
yeah, it's partially ADHD, paralysis, all the fancy terminology that they have for that, but it's also a lot of depression. You just get stuck in that situation, and then anything feels overwhelming. And they say, oh, we'll just take it bit by bit.
Yeah.
It's but then it's not going to be done, and it's, I don't know, it feels overwhelming doing any of it, or doing, all you can see is the worst for yourself, and the big picture isn't there.
Yeah.
You're just trying to make it through each minute of each day.
Right. You've got close people in your life that deal heavily with depression, and you've always been such, I think an empath is like the tiny word for it. Like you're an empath times 1,000, and that's been something we've had to, it doesn't make it easier just to have a name for it, but
it's hard to find the balance between like helping someone and having to have them help themselves, because like back when I was super depressed, if someone was like overwhelmingly just being like, it's okay, like you don't have to do this, like I know that it feels overwhelming, you don't have to, like don't worry about it, I'm gonna get even more stressed, because yes, I have to worry about that. I don't want other people to have to take care of me. I want to be able to do it myself. And it just adds on top of the frustration.
Yeah.
But there's also like, I can't completely pull myself out of it on my own. But in a sense, I kind of have to, like, the first step does have to be me.
Right.
And then maybe that first step is asking for help. It has to be me asking for help. No one can just come in and save me.
Right. And you can take a minute and think about this, but like, some people would say to me, like, how dare, you have a daughter that stresses and maybe suffers with depression. How dare you act like you know anything?
Fair.
What I was just interested in what you would say about that. And I can share what my thoughts are too.
The root of my depression, maybe my childhood contributed to it, because the truth is that it wasn't always, that you guys weren't always perfect, and you still aren't perfect.
Right.
There are things.
I think my therapist says, if you don't have trauma, junior high will do it. But
it's not just my childhood, it's like the outside world. I had bullies. I had you're sensitive. So it's like turning up the volume on. I mean, when those bullies bully, it's like turning up the volume more. Yeah, there's those things. There's coming to terms with my bisexuality, and this is back when that was kind of a new thing. So people were uncomfortable with that, and that uncomfortability was traumatizing for me, because I don't know what to do. But it's also hard because that doesn't mean that they can't be uncomfortable. Like, it is new.
Right.
It's just having the willingness to learn about it. That's important.
Yeah. How was that? Allowing yourself that? Like when you look back at that version of you, what feelings do you have about that girl?
There is like a place where I feel accepted for it. And there's a place where I feel completely judged for it. Or a lot of my experience was people having this savior complex of like
wanting to fix you,
wanting to fix me, and that wasn't the right answer either. So it's just, yeah.
What would you want to say to that younger version of you?
I'd probably say just keep doing what you're doing. Like, it's okay to be, like, other people's opinions shouldn't be your concern. You should think about what you want and do that.
Yeah. What I kind of hear what you're saying a little bit too is like, it's like you don't have a concept of, you wouldn't tell that girl, hey, it's not supposed to be this way. Your journey has been your journey. And to me, I feel so in awe of the fact that you look back at her and you can feel and have compassion for her feelings, but you recognize that you wouldn't be where you are here without what you've been through. So it's not like you just want to.
Yeah, the toughness is an important part of it. Like,
right. So it's being with that version, not trying to change what happened. And that's complex. That was like late 40s for me to learn.
There's my motto for like the past year or two has been I would rather experience the highest highs and the lowest lows of life rather than be numb and content through it all. Like, I would rather be super happy and have just the best day ever, and then the next week just feel awful about myself. And I'd rather experience that in its whole and experience like an authentic life and a full scale of emotions rather than just numbness through it all.
Yeah, that's, I don't know if I've hit that. I'm just kidding. Yeah, but I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. How would you say that me and you are alike and different? How are me and you alike? So just background, Hazel's my only daughter, 3 boys and a girl. She's the youngest. I was probably 11 weeks pregnant, maybe at the most. And I woke up in the dead of night. It was early in the morning. I stayed awake because I couldn't go back to bed, but it was early morning. And just with this knowing that this was a girl. And I was in anguish because I was like, what do I do if this baby comes out and it's a boy? Like, I will feel so bad because I just knew this was a girl. I really had this back and forth in my head about these feelings because I was like, because even with, the second boy comes along, the third boy comes along, and you get that question like, do you want a girl? And I didn't want to have any negative feelings towards a little boy that would come because that's what's going to be my baby. And so I was really fighting with myself, and I gave myself a way to kind of settle it in my mind. I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the mall. And we were still, raising kids and budgeting. And I was like, I'm going to go buy like a nice expensive girl's outfit. And while I'm standing in line, I'll have this feeling like I better not. And I went and I was standing in line, and I bought it. I bought it because I was like, I don't know what else. I'm not getting that feeling like I shouldn't buy this. And when I was told you were a girl, it was special on another level, not just because you were going to be different, but like that was one of those moments that I learned to trust that inner voice, and we still have that outfit today. And what's funny is I remember, in that struggle, I even remember having this like conversation, this conversation with God, like, if I do have a girl, I will raise her to be this and this and this. Like, I will do this so much better than my mom did. All ego. And then Hazel comes in, and there was never a point where I could force you to do anything, like not in a negative way. I mean, that I don't mean that in a negative way. You were so independent and blowing my mind at the possibilities you allowed for yourself that I recognized I'd never had in my life. And so that's been it's been so wild and interesting and awe-inspiring to see this young girl be all that she is. Even when the human side of me wants to say, no, like, don't do that. Don't do, or like, can we just this? Or, like if you, I'm like the one that doesn't even ride the motorcycle. So we're talking, so like you have like, you're getting a small hint of like, it was like, what? And yet my husband rode motorcycles, so it wasn't like it was out of the blue, but it was my daughter, and so it's just kind of funny that that's just been something we've talked about with Hazel. She's just been a teacher, and I mean that in a good way. Sometimes the best lessons, they push you, and they force you to grow. And I don't know if I would have been. There's a lot of topics I can file back to. That'll make me emotional. File back to Hazel taught me that, So I appreciate it.
It's true that there are, like, once you find out that you're having a girl, you're like, oh, this is so cool. I'm going to dress her up in cute little dresses, and I'm going to do her hair, and she's going to go shopping with me. Yep. And it is true in some senses. We like to go shopping together. Yep. We like dressing up. We like dressing up in different ways, but yes. We both like dressing up.
Yes.
We both like learning about makeup.
Yeah.
But I also want to ride motorcycles, and
I'm very much
don't like
preppy.
Having my hair up and
like East Coast type maybe. And Hazel's more of like the punk gothic type. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, I don't want to say the wrong word.
No, you're fine.
I'm like, Hazel likes to have different shades of hair. Like, I mean, how's been your longest shade of hair in the last 5 years? You know, and me, I like change. I don't care to change. You know, if I didn't have that experience of seeing you want to change all the time, I don't know if I think I would have stayed in a, you know, in that middle numb place, right? That vanilla, the vanilla life. So how would you say we're different?
I would say that we're different. I would like, when you first brought that question up, my first thought was kind of like, I have no desire to be an entrepreneur. And you are very much an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I have no desire to, I feel almost insecure giving other people advice because I don't want to be wrong. Or I don't, like, I don't know, part of me just has like this doubt of, well, anything can change. And I don't know how you handle accepting that. Or just the fear of being wrong on social media. Yeah, that was something to get over for sure. I have to allow a dynamic life within me, which means I am going to flow and change and grow. And as you do so, you'll always, I think you'll always get to a point in time where what you thought before is now wrong, in quotes. You know, it's now no longer your truth. And accepting that was difficult, but you know, a lot of times, in fact, in just this interview, I get to interview really gifted people, and I get this question a lot, but it just happened again today where she asked me about my kids and their gifts, and I said, you know, I think they're more in the sensitive stage, you know, because we talked about how you realize you're so sensitive, you're extra sensitive. And then as you work towards letting that sensitivity be a sensing sense rather than a sensitive sense, and you start to open up your gifts. But that's a journey for you to go on your own. And so I wondered, and this is a girl who, starting junior high, she had level 1 Reiki, you know, like this girl doesn't know how gifted she is. And like I say, empath is not even a great enough word for you. But how do you feel about the idea of you having gifts? Does that ever cross your mind? Is it something you think, I hope I never, no, thank you? Or is it just something that's not the focus right now? I would like to say that my life is very self-centered. So
as it should be.
I don't care to fix other people.
Right.
I don't really care to heal other people.
Yeah.
Unless they're like super, super close to me.
Yeah.
Like they're the only ones who I want to put all my effort into.
Right. Well, and gifts don't need to be expressed. They don't need to go with someone else. They don't need to, it's about knowing that you have an inner guidance that's finely tuned, and that's a gift. That's a gift.
Yeah, I'd say it's mostly for like, I don't know, I feel like my life is just very, just keep going.
One day at a time.
See how it ends up.
And that's what I think. I think you're supposed to be 18. That's what you're supposed to be. You're not supposed to be anything but an 18-year-old, and you're in that exploration stage. You're in the maiden stage of the goddess. So we always ask our guests to describe or explain, or what comes to mind when you think of the word or idea of wholeness.
I think just being truly authentic to yourself. Like I've said that throughout this whole entire recording session, but I think that it's okay for people to be different. One of my perspectives that I've taken on is, if I went through the same walk of life as someone else, I would think and act the same exact way, no matter how irrational it seems. So I think just trying to do your best is just that is completely whole, just constantly working towards doing your best and accepting that there are mistakes and being able to move on from that and learn from that rather than get caught on that.
When most people are asked what they want, they will answer, I want to be happy. But happy takes practice. And that's what the Wholeness Library is all about. So check it out free at thewholenessnetwork.com.